that Nicholson, Slottick, Zima are present. Dwayne's excused. Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Slottick, second by Zima. Under discussion, hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Approval of minutes, September 9th, 2015.
Move approval.
Motion by Slottick, second by Zima. Under discussion, hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. 4, recommend awarding bid to conduct a dependent eligibility verification audit of the city's health insurance plan to BMI Audit Services at a cost of $18,500 from the Health Insurance Fund. Director Boland.
The city is recommending that we conduct it's an audit of our health plan to determine whether or not all the dependents on the plan are meeting all the eligibility requirements. Now, this is something that the city has not done in the past. Other employers can conduct these audits. In fact, the county has conducted one, the school district, other employers. We're anticipating that our return on investment will probably be somewhere in the 2 to 3% range, which would mean we'd probably be looking at saving somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. So that would be the return on investment. As a result of that, as we are looking at next year, we are not going to be recommending any plan changes or premium cost increases to our plan. So this is part of what we're looking at for next year.
Zima?
Lynn,
Yes?
and when you, dependent eligibility verification, in other words, the husband and wife and another dependent, or 2 or 3 or whatever it is.
Yes.
We really have a problem with that some people are cheating on this or something, or what?
Well, we're just going to run a verification of that. Just
What's
to-
your verify? That's what I'm not
What they're going to
understanding.
verify is they're going to ask for copies of birth certificates, marriage licenses. They may ask for a copy, there may be cases where someone is carrying coverage for children, so there may be a divorce decree that they may ask for a copy of. So they are going to be doing verifications of that, yes.
And
chats,
anybody that's cheating, are we going to discipline them
No,
and fire
we are
them?
not.
Or?
No, we are not. We're not going to take any action in that regard.
Well, I mean,
We would remove
it
them.
seems to me if people are doing that, it's actionable. I mean,
You know-
I mean, do we really, is this a problem?
It would be actionable, but typically.
How many dependents do we have right now in our system?
We carry about 2,600 to 3,000 people on our coverage, and we have about 900 employees, so we probably have 2,000 dependents, bodies on our coverage.
And you think some of those may not be legal?
I don't know, typically there are some that are not, would not meet our eligibility requirements. Typically, that's what happens with other employers. We're just looking at what has happened in the industry.
I'll just pull something out of my back pocket. Somebody's got a niece that's been living with them for 10 years, and they represent them as a son or a daughter.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Stuff like that?
If they don't have legal guardianship, that would be correct. If they were carrying them on their coverage and they don't have legal guardianship, and they're treating them like they're a son or a daughter, that would be someone that would not have, they wouldn't have verification of their legal guardianship, then they may have the rights to have coverage. Or if someone was divorced and they're still carrying an ex-spouse, that might be another verification where somebody doesn't have eligibility.
So is that in our rules, for instance?
Yes.
That
It's all
if you
part
get
of-
divorced, your spouse can't be on the plan, is that it?
Yes.
Even if a judge decided otherwise?
Well, there may, again, every case, if there's an individual case, we would take a look at that, but typically they're not allowed onto the plan. Typically, that would not be covered under the plan.
Well, to save $200,000 to $300,000 on that, how many people do you think you're going to have to catch, or how much did you estimate? You think there's a 1 or 2% cheat rate in here?
All I know is that that's the typical return on investment. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but that's a typical return on investment. Those are the numbers
Where
that are
did you
quoted
get
by
that
the
typical
industry. I don't know what that
return on
number of
investment?
individuals is. What?
Where did that come from?
It comes from the insurance industry. That's the return on investment that we receive from the people that conduct the audits, as well as those that are out, that are insurance consultants, what the numbers that they've given us and what they have seen in terms of their work in this area. As I said, it's something the county, I think, conducted this a couple of years ago. It's consistent with what they saw.
Well, it just strikes me, Mr. Chairman, I don't know, but I just sort of feel like, you know, there might be in-between cases where somebody might not understood it or something, but it seems to me, if people have had people on the system, that we ought to be getting repaid for uses of our insurance that were inappropriate.
Are you asking me a question?
Well, I'm just throwing it out here. I'm surprised at this. I'd never thought that something like this would happen, but
It
I
happens.
thought, you know, I mean, this is almost criminal, really, you know, unless somebody really, this was naive about it.
A lot of employers looked at doing something, but most of them have backed off of doing that. So in our recommendation, we're not looking at taking action, we're just looking at cleaning that up and taking them off. So
We
we're not
wouldn't
looking
discipline
into-
an employee who added a name that shouldn't have been added. I realize it's a case-by-case basis, but
At this point, what we're looking at is going in, doing the audit, cleaning it up. Now,
wouldn't you think, wouldn't you just think that we're considering doing an audit, and if you please look at your dependents and make sure they're legal. If you have any questions, come here and tell us.
we will.
And we will have a period, a grace period of which we will not affect action upon
Again,
actions, that some sort of amnesty program, and maybe save the 18,500. That we've been aware that we learned from experience of other communities that there are people who have inappropriately placed people as dependents on their insurance that aren't there. We are asking you to look at all your dependents. It will be strictly confidential, but you'll have to bring it in, and at some point, if we don't get the response we think should be coming in, we are going to do an audit, and there will be discipline to people who have not given information with veracity. I don't know how you want to put it, but it just seems to me, I don't know, I'm trying to think, is there a way to get this done without spending $18,500? I mean, what do they actually do to verify it? They go in and ask for birth certificates
yes,
of
they
every
do.
kid?
Yes, they do. They ask for copies of birth certificates, marriage certificates, copies of tax returns.
Couldn't we just ask for that?
I'm not sure that I want to be the person that's obtaining that information. They have secure lines, they have security, you know, the auditing firm that's doing this has got all kinds of security in order to get that information, obtain that information. I'm not sure that I want that kind of data necessarily on all the employees, nor would they necessarily want to provide that. So I just think that it's cleaner to have a third-party auditor
You
conduct
don't want
that.
you don't want a
Not only is
proof of relative, that somehow that would be an imposition on their privacy? They're the ones asking for it, aren't they? I don't know. I guess I'll shut up.
Tom, you have the floor.
tax returns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is not unusual. I encountered these in the private sector when I worked there, and so auditing to make sure that, you know, that you don't have ex-spouses who are still on the account. I mean, it's not terribly uncommon for these sort of excursions to happen. They shouldn't happen, and I share your view that if somebody's been taking us for years, and getting coverage for somebody that they shouldn't be getting it for, that seems a little bit outrageous. But at the same time, given the millions that we spend on the healthcare plan, and given that up until this point, we have not tightly managed this or audited it, I don't think spending $18,000 to get in there and do one good thorough audit and find out if we have a problem and how big that problem is, that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. But I think, and I did talk this a little bit with Lynn during the break, I think going forward, we need to head this stuff off by, having employees submit something and sign something on an annual basis that says that what we've got in our records is truly accurate.
Basically, that should have been done years ago.
Ideally, it would have been.
I know every public job I had, if you were dishonest on one iota, that's deceit. Those are grounds of basically being dismissed. And I just can't believe we're not, obviously, there's gotta be some obvious circumstances here, Lynn, there has to be, if there is any. People know, this is common sense. They should be disciplined. How can you trust them as an employee if they're being deceitful on something like this?
Well, I think one of the things with Tyler Munis that we're gonna be able to do is we're gonna be able to better track electronically this information and to do our own self-audits. We haven't had that ability, but I do think that we need to have a good audit done and get to that baseline and then go from here. And again, I just assume that we will be like every other employer and we will have some ineligibles on our health insurance.
Well, I guess my opinion, if we're gonna pay $18,500, and if there's someone who's obviously that our staff is like, this is very obvious, that should be disciplined. That's my opinion. If we're gonna pay $18,000 of taxpayers' money because a government employee, who was an employee of the city of Green Bay, is basically being deceitful on his employment. That's very dishonest. It's against the law. And we're not gonna do anything? We're gonna let that go by?
I think the term is called willful misconduct.
No, if we're gonna, gentlemen, $18,500, if we're gonna spend that money, and if there's individuals that are basically being deceitful and stealing, and I'll call it stealing from the employer, they should be terminated or disciplined. Either way, terminated, disciplined, whatever. But there's got to be some repercussions on this. That's my opinion.
I think that's.
Or we don't spend the 18.5
No, I
and
think
we
we
basically
should
have
be
some
18.5,
time
but,
of,
I think we can
what Zimmer was
Well, I
saying, to
think-
have some amnesty, to have them come forward, and then, I don't know.
That's somewhat
I
of a
don't know.
separate issue, because I think that's our issue as to how we want to administer it. The audit, though, would be something here. The question is, what do we want to do about those that we discover have, other than take them off? Is there
Well,
some?
Lynn, question, what provoked you to look into this? Do you know some cases?
No, not
Then
necessarily.
why would you,
Because it was a recommendation that came from the consultant, as we're
Okay,
looking to say,
okay,
what are
that's
some
right.
areas where we might look at saving money?
that's right.
And our insurance
okay.
consultant said, well, this is what happened over at this employer, this is what happened with the county, this is what happened with the school district. I think we're probably looking at some potential to save money, and this is a way that we don't have to change our plan next year, and we don't have to increase premiums, and we can save some, because if we have the same experience here, we'll save money. So we're looking at ways to, of course,
Okay.
clean up the plan.
Right, I see where you're coming from.
So let's clean up the plan.
Okay, Alderman Slotnick?
One option is, we can have the audit done, find out if we have a problem, and if so, how big it is, and then we can have a discussion about whether there should be employment repercussions,
Okay,
and get the data.
that's an idea.
I feel it should be tied to it. I think it should just be a condition. I'm in favor of spending the money, but it seems to me if you know that there's gonna be the statistics show that you get a 1% slippage or something, that you should be able to recoup that $18,000 plus, and you should, on a case-by-case basis, discipline each and every one of those employees. If there is no really super reason why they were putting people on the plan knowingly, well, I think Anything up to dismissal. It's boy, I tell you, you can't even draw unemployment if you do something like this.
That's
You're
right.
dismissed for something like this.
I
It's called
agree.
willful
I agree we
misconduct.
should examine that. But the thing on the agenda tonight is approving the audit, and I think approving the audit, puts us in a position.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve with the condition that our staff set up a recommended discipline of any infractions that the audit will find, and bring that to us.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Zima. Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Second by Slotnick under discussion. Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with Alderman Slotnick on this point that it's like two separate things. I know they're married somewhat, but if you deal with this issue, then I would be more than willing to look at it afterwards if folks were found
Well,
ruining the system.
that's part of the motion here, though, that
But I know.
they bring back a method of disciplining
If I could just ask one
those that
side question.
have
before-
participated in that misconduct.
Before you vote. Tom, I was just going to ask you, when you worked on this in the private sector, what, did you have issues? I mean, I know this will relate maybe down the road, but how did you deal with it, and was it as big a problem as you thought it was? Or it could have been?
You asking me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mark, I wasn't responsible for that particular function, so I wouldn't know the answers. I remember, as a target, I had to provide information, but how much malfeasance there was and what was done about it, I don't recall.
That's fine.
Could you find out about that?
What's that?
Have you got contacts that you could ask about that?
I probably could.
I mean, I don't see much difference in
Stealing.
people, the DARE officer that was pocketing the parking money, and somebody who's, might be ripping off $10,000 worth of services by lying on their applications. Okay, I'm ready to vote.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Moving forward. Okay. Request by Alderman Moore, referred back to Common Council to fund the compliance inspector position solely through the 2016 budget and return 50%, which is currently funded through CDBG, back to block grant funding. Alderman Moore, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for keeping this on the agenda for the last couple months. We've had conflicting schedules and haven't been able to come in, so. So for the last several years, Community Development Block Grant Funding has funded half of our compliance officer position. So he would do half of his work in CDBG area, half of it outside. The original motion here, when I talked to Director Flom to put this all into the budget, was to have her present this in her budget, fully funded with budget money with no CDBG funds, and returning that money. Since she was leaving, she did that. So she did submit her budget already with the position completely 100% funded. My reason for doing that was to take then that 100% funding, split it in half, and add another compliance inspector. The current compliance inspector had 700 cases this past year. And after talking with Cheryl Renier-Big today, she said that only so much of the CDBG funding can be used toward personnel, and that she would take another compliance inspector and she would get their work out of him, but it would have to be, that position would have to be 100% funded out of the budget. So, the discussion, I guess, is do we want to add a compliance inspector, and how do we want to fund it? Or do we want to just leave this funding as it's been? And since former Director Flom has already submitted the budget with that additional money, I guess, coming out of her own department's money, we can split that back up and return $30,000, was the approximate savings, and fund it the way it's been funded. And just in a brief conversation with, Alderman Stoyer, if this position that he needs were to be part of the staff out of our community development department, that $30,000 that we're saving through community development block grant funds, some of that money could be applied toward that position. So I think that, you know,
Well, I don't quite
What
see
I-
how you see it as a saving, because you're freeing up money to be used,
elsewhere.
as I see it here, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want a position that is partially funded through community development grant projects to be funded in our budget, which increases our budget,
Right.
and it frees up money to use that block grant money for other things. And you're saying that you would want another inspector with it?
That's what the initial, yeah, that's what I initially had called what I was trying to do. And, but like I said, you know, Cheryl had said that she can't fund through CDBG another staff person. So basically, I want to,
Well, I can
my
understand
recommendation would be
that.
to bring it back to the way it was, with half funded through the budget process, half funded through CDBG, and.
Isn't that how it is right now?
That's how it had been up until the 2016 proposed budget. In the 2016 proposed budget, it's 100% funded out of the department with no CDBG funding.
And you want to return it to that, to what it was before?
I think we need to return it to the way it was before. That'll free up
It
30,000
doesn't
from
really
the
read that
budget.
way to me, but
Yeah, and, yeah, it's not. It's not written in there exactly the way I had tried to.
okay, so what you're asking us to do is to continue to fund the compliance inspection position, 50% with CB, Community Development Black Grant funds, and 50% from city budget.
Right. And then the
Okay, I
budget
make
that'll
that
come
motion.
to
I
you
make that
at.
motion.
Second.
Okay.
It wasn't what I really didn't see that out of the communication, so.
Yeah.
Just to-
Well, as you can see how wordy it was to try to
Just-
explain it, it was
just
hard
to
to.
elaborate.
One second, Tom. Do you have the motion, Lynn?
So it is.
If we have it clear, please.
Can I just ask, to continue to fund the compliance inspector 50% from CDBG and 50% from
From budget.
Regular
from the-
budget,
From the city's
As it has
general.
been,
Okay.
as it has been funded.
as it has historically been done.
Yes.
Okay, that's great, I'm granted.
There's a motion by Zima, second by Slotnick, under discussion. Slotnick?
Yeah, Joe, I just want to ask a question to make sure I understand. So it sounds to me like, you know, you had talked to Kim and Cheryl perhaps, and made this communication to change the way that was funded.
Right.
And,
But you've changed your mind now.
Yeah.
if I may finish, and
You can.
in anticipation that we would go ahead with that, Director Flom proposed a budget that reflects all of it coming out of the budget.
Right.
But then after more discussion with Cheryl, you're of the belief that we should not tamper with the way things have been and leave it as it has been. Do I
Right.
understand that right?
Yeah, since you put the money into the 2016 budget, then my
So-
ultimate intent on that was to then take that money, split it in half, and add another compliance inspector. And then you could have half funded, or each position half funded through the budget
I don't know if we need more
and half funded
inspectors.
through CDBG. So, but talking to Cheryl, she actually is under the belief that she may need more of the, you know, other inspectors that have had 400 plus, you know, detailed
So
inspections,
if we
but she
go-
wants to wait on this and,
If we go ahead now with what you're asking us to do,
Yeah.
we are gonna have to adjust that budget,
right.
the budget that's gonna come before us from that department.
Depending on if any changes have been made by the time it gets to
Well-
the mayor's office, back to staff.
Okay.
Well, we're meeting next Tuesday,
Right.
and the budget books are coming out next Friday.
The 23rd, I think is what you said.
Well, if
The
we make that
recommendation is
change,
for-
they can amend the budget book right then and there.
Exactly.
I have my question answered, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is the other
Wouldn't it have
half
to be
the
amended?
general fund?
The other half is whatever, yeah, it's out of the department's budgetary.
Yeah, I get,
Yeah.
okay, general
Payroll,
fund,
so.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Lynn, do you have the motion?
I think so, yes, to continue to fund the compliance inspector for 2016, 50% from CDBG funding and the city, and 50% from the city's general fund, as it has historically been done.
Well,
Okay.
I don't think it was from the general fund before. It was
You
part of our
don't
budget.
It's out of the department budget. Yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
and out of the department, I think that is, okay.
Okay. Do we have it?
Yep.
Okay. I believe, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Number 6, quarterly report on the number of speeding citations issued by the Green Bay Police Department with possible action. Lieutenant, are you here for this?
If you need me.
Okay. Do you have a quarterly report?
The same one I was included in the packets, I believe.
It is attached, it's
Okay.
item 6.
That's what this is about? Okay. I was just looking at that, comparing it with 2014 status report, 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010. Basically focusing on when Officer Lauser and Wickman retired in 2012. When you're looking at it in 2010, Lieutenant, I can reference this to you if you want to take a look at it. You were on the force at the time, and you probably know, I hope, that Lauser and Wickman, Kozmowski, and I think there was another Wickman.
Whitman
Were
was in there,
full-time?
Shaden was in there.
Okay.
Kemp was in there, it was.
Yeah,
people from
and
everywhere.
the numbers were a lot higher than what it is now.
Yep.
And, I've been in a lot of communication with Mr. Molitor, our ex-chief. And basically, it took about 2.5 years for him just to say he needs more flexibility. Okay? Well, okay, we went through this hearing and everything, and basically this committee, with a 2-1 vote, supported to bring back a full-time traffic unit. And then Lewis still, basically, has he organized this at all, or?
We are actually right in the middle of contract negotiations. So
Okay.
we are meeting Monday with the association.
Okay,
That has been a topic of discussion
Okay.
at our negotiations. This issue is also with the WRC. So we're waiting for a hearing on that, which is later this month as well.
okay, so the city appealed that then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep. So what we're doing now, all the traffic complaints go to Lieutenant Ackerman. He puts out a weekly report, and each shift dispatches officers to these traffic complaints. So all the traffic complaints that are coming in are being addressed by on shift.
no, let me interrupt you.
Yep.
My understanding is that we have to make complaints or some type of communication to our captains in the field. District captains, I believe they're called?
Yep.
Okay, now you're telling us Lieutenant Ackerman.
Well, those are all funneled to Lieutenant Ackerman, who puts the weekly report together.
Okay.
Yes. So they're all coming in at that point of the district captain or whoever takes those phone calls. Everything is funneled to Lieutenant Ackerman,
Mm-hmm.
puts his weekly report together, and those things are addressed on shift. So that we're actually dispatching officers to these areas of concern to address that call at that time, just like it's a dispatch call. When there's downtime, they're staying in those areas on a traffic complaint call and addressing the issues that are.
If they have downtime. It's-
Well, yeah, if there's downtime, if
Right,
they're,
but on a
whatever.
3 to 11 shift, how much downtime do these officers have?
Thankfully, a little bit more now, just based on the time of the season.
Okay, a little bit more, such as
I couldn't tell you.
from
Just-
call to call to what?
Just
1 to
knowing
2
that-
minute downtime?
Just knowing that call volume is going down this time of year, and that's the historical nature of this time of year.
Okay.
We do have that. we
But
do
the
have that
greater
coverage
need
shift.
is during the summer when people are outside, when they witness these actions of speeding motor vehicles.
And I don't know what the volume is of versus summer versus right now as far as traffic complaints that we're getting. I couldn't tell you, and I don't want to give you a number. Obviously, you're probably correct because you're seeing that more. But, again, we are addressing this issue. We're not ignoring it at the table, negotiating this thing. We'll also see what happens with the WRC level to address it as well.
Okay. That's understandable. Addressing the problem, I guess I disagree with you, Lieutenant. They're dealing with Molitor with this issue for approximately 2.5 years. He didn't address it.
No, and that, and now we're, have moved away from him and we're addressing it the way we're doing it now with funneling those calls, one central point,
Okay.
actually dispatching officers to address the calls. Instead of, it's a traffic complaint that happens at this time, between this time and this time. We didn't have 24-hour coverage with the full-time traffic unit.
No,
just
but
didn't.
we had more coverage than we do now.
Right, but now those traffic complaints that are happening in the evenings and at night are being addressed by those shift officers. I'm not saying it's the best
So we're
product
using
at this point.
officers that are call to call, basically doing traffic
And
also.
those are a priority, depending on where Lieutenant Ackerman ranks those in his weekly report.
Right.
And you're right, I agree with you that it's not the best answer and the best solve for this right now. But again, with the contract negotiation going on,
I
we're addressing
understand.
it at that area. And, on this specific issue, we have to wait for the WRC process to take its course.
And Lieutenant, I know you're not in a position to basically, take the bull by its horn and say, hey, we're gonna have a traffic unit here, and basically, they can watch these streets for hours
Right.
instead of taking them from a pool of call-to-call officers. That's why I've stated this before many times, and I'll state it again, I've been utilizing the county sheriff's department for the city of Green Bay.
Yeah, we understand that.
Nothing wrong with the city of Green Bay. If they're busy, call to call, it's very important.
Right.
But as a county supervisor, I do represent some of the city, and I'll utilize the county sheriff's department to help out the constituents, maybe to prevent any type of problems there also. And it's basically, when you look at it, the city, we're all one big family. We all gotta work together, and we all gotta get along
Right.
at some point. But when this hearing is settled, it'll be very interesting what we're gonna be up against.
Right.
So, that's all I have right now. Anybody other questions? Sladek, Zima? Alderman Zima?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just looking at your total citations. This was the total citations year to year, this top number here?
Correct.
This is a 3-month
Yep,
view
this is a
year,
quarterly
July,
report.
August, and September.
Correct.
I just added up the total, that would be 1,681, and I don't know if it's fair to do it that way, but I multiplied by 4 to extrapolate for a full year. Comes up to about 3,700,
This is what I have.
and we previously had, well, even in 2013, had more than double that, and in previous years to that, 3 times that. That's quite a difference.
Sure.
The guy's not in the position to make decisions on.
Well, I understand, I just want
Basically,
to make sure I understand this correctly. Is that the right data? Do you know what the full year, the past 20?
No, the only one I have the previous quarter. Was that attached to your packets as well?
Do you know what 2014 was?
No, I don't.
No, just July, August, and September was attached.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's at least anecdotal,
It's revenue that we're not receiving.
No, I don't know why there's been such a resistance to, when these positions essentially almost pay for themselves, and they give that service to the city. I mean, it shouldn't infringe on anything else. The flexibility, understood. Flexibility, 4 positions, take away that much flexibility? I think it's, the proof is in the pudding. It just seems absurd here. So I don't know, what did you want to do with this, Mr. Chairman?
I would just like to have it on the agenda for the next, basically, what is it, a quarterly report?
Yep, quarterly.
Just
At
have
some
it for
point,
another,
I think we need to have this discussion again.
well, we
What
haven't.
was our recommendation when we talked about this, a year and a half ago or a year ago or something?
Well, according to Chief Molitor, he wanted the flexibility. So we worked with him for 2.5 years, and basically, we had that discussion at personnel, if you remember, and he drew a line in the sand, and basically, in so many words, our perception was completely different from his perception, that we wanted to micromanage his department, if you remember.
Well, I
That
remember
was,
he
I
was
don't know,
talking.
June or
But I
May
think
of
it
this
was-
year.
It was myself that asked for the statistics originally. I said, well, the proof is in the pudding. What's the number of citations? What's the revenue? And of course, he brought the report in, and then, of course, he kind of had his hands on his butt at that point in time, because the statistics bore out exactly what we were talking about. And then it kind of deteriorated into, well, other people are doing that work too, well, and it shouldn't cut down on the citations or anything else, but I don't know, I just didn't understand it. I was told it was, I don't know if it's true or not, but that it was, oh, well, they didn't want the traffic team to have
Vacation,
independence or whatever it is,
independence from the other line officers.
so I don't know.
That's the communication I had with Chief Molitor. He just didn't feel that these 4 officers are warranted to basically pick and choose when they want vacation, which to me, being in the police department, I don't know, there might be 1 or 2, maybe not, I shouldn't even say that. I know the majority of the attitude of police officers don't want to work traffic 8 hours a day because the reasons, because it's just basically boring. And to have a little perk, which to pick your own vacation for 4 officers, they can pick and choose anytime they want,
It really
is a
doesn't-
little perk to try to bring some officers to the traffic unit. And 4 individuals that worked at Lausern, Wickman, Komorowski, and I can't remember the last one. I mean, they worked very hard. They brought in results, they brought in revenue. We will never know how many accidents were prevented because of these individuals, because you can't predict the future, but they worked very hard. Their due diligence, they were very good traffic officers. And for a chief to pull back a perk like that and say, I need more flexibility, I don't know, I disagree. To get good officers, wow, I mean, what's the cost of, to the city to let these 4 officers pick their own vacation?
I just don't understand
I mean,
how
that-
that upsets
that's
the
bizarre.
apple cart. How does that upset the apple cart so tremendously if it was half the department or something?
And Chief Lewis was on those negotiations back in the early 90s. He even stated that. So he even created this issue with the picking your own vacation. Oh, I wish he was here. But do you know when will he be at our next meeting, Lieutenant?
I'm not sure.
But you talk to him every day, basically.
Yeah.
Could you
I'll make
just
that
mention
very
it to
clear,
him?
Yes.
Where's
Thank you.
where's the city at getting a new chief now?
We're in the process of conducting screening interviews, phone screening interviews, so they're in the process. They probably will be doing interviews in November sometime.
I mean, they had quite a few people apply. And they boiled it down to,
I think they're.
somebody told me 11 or something,
Yeah,
or 7,
right.
I can't remember now.
Yeah, I think they had it at 11. I think they're doing screening interviews, as I said, and they'll probably be inviting 4 or 5 candidates in to do interviews in, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be November,
Well, I think,
which is pretty consistent with what their timeline,
I
their
think
initial
after
timeline was.
budget time, let's just
Mm.
bring this up again and have a discussion again. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me what should happen.
There are some creative ways to get this done, and over that 2-year period, we were trying to work out this deal and got very close several times. Unfortunately,
I remember.
we didn't make that turn, and with the negotiation that we're in the middle now for the contract,
Why should we even be
Well,
fighting this?
Lieutenant, who was in the negotiations? Was Chief Molitor in the negotiations? Okay.
I mean, he was obviously ultimately the final say when we
Right.
were getting close to the agreements on this thing.
All right, okay. I know you're the, bringing the message to us,
Yeah, yeah.
and we understand,
Yep.
but it's very frustrating. The only people that are suffering is the public. Because I do receive many, numerous calls. Well, that's what I meant, the taxpayers, the public. Because I do receive many, numerous calls in certain areas, and like I said, I mean, I can call the sheriff's department, and they're willing to work with us, which is awful nice.
Right.
So,
And awful ridiculous.
but
I agree with that as well.
would I entertain a motion to have another quarterly report unless,
Make a motion that we,
or I'll
we
entertain
put this
anything
on, I
here.
make a motion, we put the subject of traffic control unit on our first meeting in December.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Did you say motion to put this on the first meeting in December?
correct.
Our committee, yeah.
We should have a new chief by then, right, Lieutenant?
Should be getting pretty close.
Doesn't matter
Pretty
anyway.
close.
We're the policy makers.
I know, but I'm just asking a question. All right. Well, motion by Zimmer, second by Slotnick, under discussion. Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward. 7, report on automated sanitation and worker compensation cost reduction, Director Boland.
You asked that we give you an update on the automated sanitation and worker compensation costs, and Colleen Hins, our safety manager, is here with me today, and she did prepare, it's included in your packet, that report, and she is here to answer any questions that you may have in that regard.
There is one minor correction to the memo. There was one injury in 2015 where a worker got either wood dust or ash in their eye when the cart was tipped, and that cost $144. So
That was it?
that's it.
So basically, in the past, what type of injuries did the city experience then?
We were getting
Back injuries.
back injuries.
Well,
shoulder
I'm
injuries.
sorry,
Oh.
number, a number, like
Approximately, it averaged out to 21 claims. a
21
year.
claims, and we basically have one
Yes.
in 2015 because of ash in
Essentially
someone's eye, correct?
Eliminated, we've
Okay.
eliminated claims essentially.
And
Well,
then
that's why I want this
sanitation,
on the report here for the Personnel Committee.
All right, your motion is receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file by Zimmer, second by Slotnick, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes, motion carried. 8, report on Employee Safety Recognition Program. Director Boland?
I think that was in the spring. Colleen Hins came forward with a recommendation for a safety recognition program, and you asked that she give you an update in 6 months on what happened with
Correct.
that program, and so she's here to give you that update today.
So there is a memo in the packet. Basically, we implemented it on April 1st of this year, so October 1st would have been the 6 months. We have given out 10 safety spot awards. 4 examples are in the memos. Not only are our employees looking out for other employees, but also the public. So the ideas and the forms and the awards being submitted for those awards, there's a lot of thought in that. And it's just not things that you would see day to day. So they're actually being submitted for items, safety items that are above and beyond, and positive feedback all the way around.
Any questions from the committee? If not, Alderman Slotnick.
I guess just a comment and a question. These are good examples, so it looks like the program is recognizing the sort of things that we want to have happen. Now that you're 6 months into the program, given that experience, would you change anything? Or are you completely happy with the way it's going?
Completely happy right now with where it is. The only request I would say is, could we make sure that we keep that $1,000 in the budget next year
Okay.
to continue the
All
program?
right, thank you. Nothing more.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Move receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file by Zimmer, second by Slotnick, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
All right,
Ayes, motion carried. 9, report of routine personnel action for regular employees.
move to receive and place on file.
Motion by Slotnick, to receive and place on file, second by Zimmer, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Ayes, motion carried. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Slotnick, second by Zimmer, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
All right.
Ayes, motion carried, we're adjourned.